Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today I want to break down for you the stuff we've been talking about for 10 or 15 years, but I'm going to bring some of my awareness as a result of what I've experienced over the past year and a half about the spiritual energies of the body. There are various energy systems within the body, and they serve different functions. And over the past however many thousands of years, human beings have focused on one energy system at a time. And I think for the first time in history, I have unified these systems. So we're going to talk about, from my experience, what I believe the 5D energies are and what the 3D energies are. So I've got, in order to keep me on a, keep me from getting lost in tangents, I have lists. So I've got my lists here, which we'll be looking at to keep me on track, and I will be explaining all of this to you. So, as you know, well, first let me just say to you, if you're new to the channel, I need you to do this. I need you to first subscribe, like, and comment. Then I need you to go to the playlist section on the thunderwizard.com YouTube site. ThunderWizard.com, the YouTube page. Go to that YouTube page and go to the playlist section. And I want you to click on the following playlists. The Maoshan Qigong, the Interdimensional Meditation is the second one, and the third one is the 12 Steps to 5D. I want you to do at least one thing from those three playlists every day. If at the very least, I need you to do at least one thing from one of those playlists every day. Then what I need you to do is go to the thunderwizard.com site. This is the website. And I want you to subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Follow the instructions, simply press play and do the practices. We're going to be talking about what those practices are and how they have been synthesized for a 5D experience. All right, so secret spiritual energies of 5D versus the 3D energies of, versus the 3 energies of 3D. 5D energies, these, I'm going to explain these in detail. We've got life force, we've got the energy of the heart and the soul, and then we have 5D intent. These are specific energies focused on specific areas of the body, and they awaken in a certain frequency in order to tap into 5D. The 3D energies, these are the energies that have been opened up by the vast majority of spiritual practitioners, even enlightened beings, even people who have achieved enlightenment. The 3D energies that they use are the sexual force, the life force, and then the spirit. And the 3D focus is different than the 5D focus. So, of course, it's hindsight is 20/20. So what's happening with me now is that I am using my hindsight after, doing this for, 30 to 40 years. I found myself learning a very esoteric practice, which you now know is the Maoshan practice. I didn't know any of these differences. All I knew is that I had stumbled into, actually been led into it by the universe, into this very esoteric practice. I knew that it was called a Taoist practice, the ancient spiritual practice of the indigenous Chinese people. I knew that, and I learned about Taoism, of course. But what I found out very quickly was that the 99% of the rest of the Taoist practitioners in the world, when they saw the kind of stuff that I did, or if I told them that I was doing Mao Shan, they had very interesting responses. Many of them would say, here are some of the things that I've heard over the years. The most common thing I've heard from your average Taoist practitioner who does Xingyi, Bagua, Tai Chi, Taoist meditation, the microcosmic orbit, your average working with the elements, which all Taoists do. The vast majority of what I've heard from them has been something to the effect of, I've been doing this energy practice my whole life, and the stuff that you teach, I've never experienced anything that had that level of purity, that level of power, that level of intensity. And I took note of that, and I didn't know why that was. I just, thought I'd lucked into a really good practice. Some of the things people said were, once they found out what I was doing, one guy was a Taoist, for all intents and purposes, a Taoist master. He was an abbot. I don't know what that means, but he, trained in China and was given this, Taoist abbothood thing. And he said that, wow, that stuff you're doing is very powerful. You're going to get lots of power, but what happens is it comes from demons. And demons will jump inside your body and kill you. You'll die very quickly, but you'll gain power. And I thought that just didn't make any sense. I went back and talked to my teacher about it, and he laughed and he said, don't tell other Taoists that you do Mao Shan. They're afraid of you. They don't understand it. They've been doing this for thousands of years. They are intimidated because they know their practices aren't as powerful. And so when they hear about somebody like you, they have to make themselves feel better by saying your stuff comes from demons. And it reminds me of that one verse in the New Testament where, Jesus and his followers were casting demons out. And the Sanhedrin, the Jewish priestly elite, accused him of casting out demons through the power of the devil, to which Jesus supposedly replied, and he said, how can Satan cast himself out? And I thought about that, because these practices, the energy that's created in them, are designed to fight evil spirits, not with intent, not with prayers or rituals, but with literally the energy that you have. You can go and with your own bare hands you can fight against evil spirits. So that doesn't make any sense. How can evil spirits fight themselves? It doesn't make any sense. So I thought about that. So I just didn't know. I just assumed it was just a more concentrated, more powerful version. But then as time went on, I researched more and more, and I got more educated in certain things about Taoist energy practices leading towards their version of enlightenment. And so I came across this, the 3 spiritual energies. So up at the top in green, these are the energies that 99.9% of all Taoists use. In fact, it's repeated so much it's ubiquitous. Jing to Qi to Shen. And this is the dogma. So when I would go and talk to them about what I do and how the energy works, they would say, that's not right. That's not how it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be done this way. Jing to Qi to Shen. My teachers never talked about that. So I thought that my teachers were uneducated. I thought they didn't know the true stuff, and so I was gonna, behind their back, I was gonna go learn all this stuff, and I was gonna, fix the teaching of it. But it never aligned. And the other thing is that the energy that comes from, like, for instance, Tai Chi masters, Bagua masters, Xingyi masters, they've got powers. They've got martial powers, but it was very different. The energies that they create, what they would do is they would create sort of this energy bubble. And you may have seen some of the ridiculous videos on YouTube of these Tai Chi masters pushing people, without touching them. Most of that is nonsense. Every now and then you run into somebody who actually does have those powers. They do exist. But it's very different. And what I found is that if people who had that kind of power wanted to trade hands with me, I would slice right through them. My energy would slice right through their protective bubble and hit them, and they would be like, how did you do that? I don't know. So it became very clear that the energy that I had was very different from their energy. And again, this is one of the reasons why they think this is dogma, Jing to Qi to Shen. They think that's the only way that you can create energy. So if I come along and I've got energy that slices right through that, they start to think, oh, he's worshiping demons. And so a lot of them would come up with that kind of thought process. So Jing is sexual forces. This is why in most Taoist practices you have to be celibate. I was celibate. I was celibate for 6.5 years, so I know what that does, and it certainly didn't hurt me in any capacity in terms of opening up my meridians and giving me the power that I had when I was practicing, hardcore. I had a heck of a lot of power. I had to be careful who I touched and, all that kind of stuff, because all kinds of crazy things would happen. But I definitely did not do this practice of Jing to Qi to Shen. So what they mean is you have to be celibate, and then you have to gather your sexual energy, your sexual fluids. And unfortunately, a lot of people on YouTube think that, by simply not releasing sexual fluids that they're doing this, and you're not. You actually have to have techniques. You have to have a teacher who can teach you techniques whereby you can take that fluid up into your spinal column. If you don't do anything, if all you're doing is you're one of these no-fap people and all you do is just not release your built up sexual energy, the only thing that happens is that it builds up in you and it creates a lot of heat and it drives you crazy. It doesn't do anything for you. You're much better off just being a normal person. But a lot of people conflate their own sexual guilt with it. So people think that if I don't, engage with that aspect of me, I'm more spiritually pure, which is complete nonsense. That's like saying you're pure because you don't defecate or you don't urinate. These are things that build up in you that have to be released. But if you know how to take these sexual fluids with specific practices and specific meditations and specific energy work, you can bring them up through the spinal column into the pineal gland. But you still end up with 3D energies. So I want you to understand that the people who in the past, generally speaking, the people in the past who have used this path of Jing to Qi to Shen, who have achieved an awareness and enlightenment, it's an enlightenment within the third dimension. It very rarely goes beyond that from my observation. Whereas the stuff that I'm going to share with you, the Mao Shan stuff, that stuff goes directly to higher dimensional energies. And again, it's the benefit of hindsight and lifetime of practice has proven this to me. So I'm sharing this with you. I've given away the free stuff if you're doing Awakening the Immortals, or if you're one of the lucky ones who are subscribed to the 90-day challenge. I want you to understand what these energies are doing and the science behind it. So Jing to Qi to Shen. Jing means sexual forces. Qi means the navel center, because in most Taoist practices, the navel center is where people store their life force energy. So in fact, they spend time putting energy into the navel center. Now that is a 3D understanding as well, because the third dimension is all about your ego. And the navel center is the ego. And I don't mean that in any negative sense. It just simply means it is where your identity is. So if you want to have a strong identity, you have to get a strong navel. Why? I mean, and you see this everywhere. Boxers need to be able to take a punch to the gut. Singers need to be able to project from the diaphragm. All of this stuff is physical, and it is also symbolic. It means you have to have a powerful, well-defined ego, well-defined identity. So that means that when you take all of your life force energy and you put it there, that means that you are going to have a 3D identity. You might be a spiritual powerhouse. You might be very spiritual. You might be very healthy. You might be able to, live forever, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean you've gone beyond the third dimension. So then they go from Jing to Qi to Shen. Shen is what I'm calling the spirit mind. They will call it spirit. And my experience is that again, to me, if I'm going to pick one, is more like a 3D kind of a spirit. Again, I'm reducing it to these definitions, which it doesn't give it the nuance that it deserves, but for argument's sake, I'm going to use that. So Jing to Qi to Shen. What ends up happening is that you don't necessarily stimulate your 5-dimensional senses within you. And it's a long path. Jing to Qi to Shen is a long path. It takes a long time. It takes years to refine the sexual fluids into life force energy, and then take that life force energy and turn it into spirit mind. It takes decades. And this is good because human beings in the third dimension, they need discipline. They need discipline in order to not indulge in their self-destructive tendencies. But what ends up happening, there's a danger. We would call this a right-hand path. Please forget everything you've heard from modern Western magic when they talk about right hand and left hand. I'm going to tell you most of that I've heard from modern Western magicians is nonsense. Right-hand path has everything to do with the male mind. And it has everything to do with third dimensional reality. People who follow right-hand paths, the Shaolin, very right-hand path. Discipline, monasticism, spending, a lot of time doing very intricate practices. Those of you who've done the Mao Shan stuff, you know that it's incredibly simple. And what I found is the simpler the stuff, the more powerful it tends to be. But if you have a right-hand path which connects to your left brain, which is your intellect, if you have a lot of details, you have to follow this and do this and say this and think this and visualize that, and it's very detailed, actually that people prefer that. Human beings in the third dimension prefer that because it keeps them in their intellect. Your intellect is a software that is imprinted into your hardware brain that keeps you in the third dimension. So Jing to Qi to Shen, generally speaking, I mean, when you get to the farthest reaches of it, it opens up into 5D. So I don't want to make it sound like it's horrible, but it's mainly to help three-dimensional people prevent themselves from destroying themselves. So the path, there's what I'm calling the 5D path is Qi to Shi to Yi. So Qi is the life force energy. So we don't mess around spending all this time trying to harness our sexual energy and then prevent, that again is, and let me explain the reason why people do the Jing to Qi to Shen. Because in order to have a healthy identity, the first thing you need to do is individuate. So, what happens to most people is when they hit puberty in high school and college, they go crazy. sexually. I know I did. And I got nothing against it. Go have fun. But what ends up happening is that you enmesh yourself psychologically. I mean, people will say it's energy, but that's not really it. Yes, there is an energetic component where you share energies with people, but my experience is that it's far more psychologically important than energetically important. So what ends up happening is that sexual connection ends up enmeshing you to other people's unconscious. And again, this is, go back historically, the reason why people would go straight from virginity into marriage is because, for spiritual reasons, what it would happen is that your unconscious would then merge with that person's unconscious, and you wouldn't have anybody else's consciousness floating around. And so this created a strong marriage bond, which created a strong bond for having children and doing the things that people needed to do thousands of years ago. There's a reason why all that stuff was there. In modern times, we don't need that. So people can, psychologically enmesh with other people. But that's why the right-hand path, for instance, if let's say you want to go become a follower of Krishna, it's very likely, if you get serious about it, they're going to tell you have to be completely sex-free and you have to be celibate. And the reason for that is because that path, the people who are attracted to that path are people who have very poor psychological boundaries. And so they need to strengthen that up. That's why Krishna is associated with seduction and love of the devotee. And so you marry yourself to him, like, Christians marry themselves to Jesus. It has that same idea that you're not enmeshing your psyche and your ego to a bunch of different people, which means you don't know who the hell you are. But again, this all has to do with being powerful in the third dimension, having a strong 3D ego. So we bypass that in the 5D and we go straight to the life force energy. So life force energy is everywhere. But in the third dimension, life force energy connects us to the grid of life force in our 3D world. By the way, please disregard anybody who says that Kundalini is the web of life force energy. They don't know what they're talking about. Most people say that. Even very famous teachers say that. And they don't know what they're talking about. Chi, life force energy, prana, is the web of life force energy that surrounds and penetrates all of 3D physical life. So we go straight to that. That opens up a door, of course, for the body, the cells of the body, the nervous system of the body, the meridians of the body. It opens up all of the three centers, the navel, the heart, the third eye. It opens those up and allows you to accomplish all kinds of things personally. Now, this is very helpful for your ego. So we don't bother with what I would, forgive me for putting the spin on it, childishness of having to struggle to create your own identity and not get enmeshed in other people's identity. We don't deal with that. To me, that's training wheels. That's elementary school. We assume that you have the boundaries and the ability, and we're going to go straight into that. We're going to treat ourselves like adults. So we go straight into the chi, which is the life force energy, your ego, empowering the identity that you have. We're going to transform this identity very quickly. So normally they go Jing to Chi to Shen, which is spirit. And my experience of that is that it's the spirit in the third dimension that connects everything. It doesn't mean you can't connect to other spirit, to your soul in Shen, but to me it has a 3D limit. It only goes so far. So in the Qi to Shi to Yi, we take our life force and then we bring it to the heart mind. The heart mind has been kept secret. In fact, it is the most powerful of the energy forces available to us. And it is a force that connects us to infinity. The practices in the Mao Shan, starting with some of the very simple mudras. I teach you some very simple hand gestures and movements and things like that. And I'm not going to get into it, but now again, 30 plus years later, doing the reverse engineering of it, I've now come to realize that the specific hand placements and movements are directly connected to the specific meridian system of the heart mind. And when I compare that to practices that look very similar, that even feel somewhat similar in your average Tai Chi, Xing Yi, Bagua, they actually don't tap into that specific meridian system. Just to give you an idea, there was a guy, I didn't see this, one of my fellow students when I was a student in the Mao Shan, he had shown his forms, which you get here at 923.thunderwizard.com, the Mao Shan forms. He showed the forms. I did this too, now that I'm thinking about it. He showed the forms to a guy who was a master in, regular Taoist stuff. And the first thing the guy said, he goes, that stuff is evil. And it's because he saw that there were certain meridians that were being stimulated that he was told not to stimulate. Now, if you want to control first, if you want to keep somebody safe, if you want to keep a child safe, you don't hand them a loaded gun. So that's the first reason why all of these Taoists were taught not to do certain things, because if they did, we don't know if this person can handle the power. Will he hurt himself? Will he hurt others? But the second thing is, if you want to control somebody, you don't give them access to the most powerful practices. So this is another reason why people would be told not to do certain things. I did the same thing. I went to a guy who claimed, well, he didn't claim, he trained on Mao Shan Mountain after the communists had taken it over. And by that time, the actual Mao Shan masters had fled China. They were gone. And so the communists came in, they put people in, put robes on them, told them they were a Taoist monk, gave them access to whatever Taoist Mao Shan scriptures they could find, and then said, figure this out. So these people were trying to figure out, reading these ancient texts that they'd never seen before, and they were trying to reconstruct it, and they weren't able to do that. And this guy, I won't mention him, but he trained with them and was supposedly given the title of such and such Mao Shan blah. But when he saw the stuff that I did, he said, that stuff is dangerous. This is a second Taoist guy, said to me that if you do that, you're going to get negative energy and it's going to kill you and all that. So that's a way of keeping people out of having real power. It's a real easy way to do that. So the Shi, the heart mind is an electrical energetic force that surrounds the heart. There's a reason why when somebody's heart stops, we get those electrical paddles and we jolt them. It's because there is literally an electrical field surrounding the heart. Now, where the heart is, here in the center of your chest, there is the soul. So the soul isn't physical. If you try to look for it with X-ray, or any kind of electrical scanning devices, you're not going to see it. But we all know that there's an electrical field around the heart. We all know that. But there's an electromagnetic field as well. And it's like a Faraday cage. There's this cage of electricity that's surrounding the soul. So let me be clear what the soul is. The soul in your body is like 1/2 of 1%. It's probably even less than that. The soul that is in your body is about 1/2 of 1% of your actual soul essence, which cannot fit in the third dimension. If the entirety of your soul came into the third dimension, just your soul alone, the third dimension would cease to exist. You wouldn't be able to fit. And the third dimension is just too limited. So in order for us to have a third dimensional experience, we're literally sending the tiniest part of our essence and we're putting it into this 3D physical meat bag virtual reality interface machine. And even that tiny little bit of your soul essence has to have protection around it. So one of the things that you will know if you do interdimensional meditation and you have physical, energetic contact, either astrally or even physically, with a higher dimensional being, you will know that one of the first things that happens is that you will feel what feels like a pressure on your chest, right here. And you'll feel that energy sometimes fill your whole body, and you will feel that it is a very powerful energetic force, and yet you'll have this experience that it's nothing from this world. Well, that is higher dimensional energy, and that is always coming through in electromagnetic forces. So your soul is the tiniest little bit of electromagnetic force. And in order to protect the third dimension, it is surrounded by an electromagnetic shield. Now that electromagnetic shield also protects the soul from the harshness and the cruelty of the third dimension, because unlike your mind, your emotions, your soul is neutral. Your soul is not affected by all of the craziness down here, which is why working with the heart mind is very good, because you get past all of your 3D emotional responses. You have to work through them. And again, this is dangerous for, especially we go back in time in the third dimension, the average person needed to stay in the third dimension or they'd lose their mind. And if you give people too much of higher dimensional energy, they can be self-destructive. They can lose it. They can go bonkers. So this is again why Jing to Qi to Shen was the safe path, whereas Qi to Shi to Yi was the path only reserved for the most advanced Maoshan practitioners. And that's what I've come to find out. I was told that my whole time I was training. My teachers would say, what you're learning has been kept secret because it's too powerful. The average person can't handle it. So I'm the first person I know of who's been publicly teaching these energies. And now I know why. Because we are going through this higher dimensional shift, and these higher dimensional beings who have created this path of Jing to Qi Qi, Shi, and Yi, these beings are now inviting us to come into their higher dimensional space. So there's a whole transformation of the human body. Humans are moving from animals to actual spiritual beings. We're moving to, human beings will be light beings. We're on the path to doing that. So now we have to take off the training wheels. So Yi is the final one. So Shen is the final one for the 3D path. For the 5D path, Yi is the final one. Yi means intent. So Yi is directly connected to the third eye, which is what the pineal gland. So the difference between the average 3D person and somebody who's going towards 5D is that a 5D person can intend their reality. We would call this magic. It's not really magic. That's what happens when you have access to electromagnetic energy. When you can project this with your intent, you can create. And now you're at the level of a deity. You're at the level of a creator. You're not at the level of somebody who has to learn how to discipline themselves within this third dimension. You're now creating a reality. It's very powerful. So it is true. You have to lose that 3D identity, that 3D ego. Otherwise, and again, for years, I've, the stuff that I don't teach is the pure spirit fighting. And I don't teach that. I won't put sets like that on video and teach it, because I have to be there to make sure that the person can handle the energy. And what I've found as a student and as a teacher is that people will show up and I'll say to them, if you're going to learn this, I'm telling you right now that it's going to completely destroy you on a psychological level, and you're going to have to die to all kinds of attachments. And people would say, oh yeah, don't worry, I've been working on myself for years, I'm going to be fine. And within a few weeks they'd be gone. They couldn't hack it. They couldn't handle the emotions that came up, and the fear that would come up as they're starting to die. Now, any of you who've done interdimensional meditation and you have had direct contact with these higher dimensional beings, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because that is what happens. And again, that's how I know. That's not the only way I know, but that's one of the ways I know that this path of Qi, Shi to Yi is a light being path, because I learned personally, as well as watching people going through that at a much lower level. When you have direct access to a higher dimensional being who starts tearing open the boundaries of reality and showing you your soul and who you are in higher dimensions, I mean, your three-dimensional mind is going to get torn to shreds. So this is a safer way to do that, and this is why I'm teaching it, because this is where everybody's going to go. And you have to be able to handle it when it comes, or you will choose to shift down. People who shift down won't be able to handle it. People who choose to shift up are going to have to be willing to die to themselves on all kinds of levels. And so doing this Maoshan path actually clears away a lot of the garbage so that you can do it much more easily. So life force, heart, mind, intent. So these are the two paths. Sexual forces to life force to spirit mind is the 3D path of enlightenment. 5D spiritual energy path is life force. Electromagnetic heart mind to intent. And remember, the energy that allows people to destroy demons, which are destructive two-dimensional intrusive energies, is the heart mind. It is the lightning center of the heart. This is why I'm telling you guys to practice the lightning qigong. You don't have to go out and fight demons, but we all have our own internal demons. And the way demons are created, demons are not fallen angels. That's nonsense. There's no way, absolutely zero possibility, that a fifth dimensional or above being is going to walk away from that and choose to fall to the third dimension. It's impossible at that dimensional state of being to think of anything, that supposedly the biblical understanding of, these light beings chose the way of rebellion and ego and selfishness and they fell. It doesn't work like that. It's just not possible. Demons are not conscious beings. Now, they have consciousness the same way that perhaps AI has consciousness. It's not true consciousness. There's nobody home. It is a program that has the ability to self-navigate. And it's created inside a human being. So demons, any demons that are running around on planet Earth, they do exist. I know, I've seen them, I've fought them, I've looked at them in the face. I know that they exist. These are beings that are created out of emotional energies within human beings. So when somebody's emotions get so out of balance and so much, when they get filled with so much negativity, they will get squished out of the human body and they will float around like a program. And they will be ghosts. Ghosts are not the souls of humans. When you die, your soul goes to higher dimensions. It doesn't get stuck on earth. That's an impossibility. It might very well be your ego that gets squished out onto the plane. But that only happens when you're filled with negativity. People who die peacefully, their 3D ego disappears. Or it gets absorbed back into the earth. But if your ghost is on earth, it means that you didn't die peacefully. You were filled with rage, anger, greed, fear, something like that. And you never find a happy ghost. You find ghosts, they're jumping off the cliff, killing themselves every day. They're attacking people every day. They're frightening people. That's why they moan. Oh! They do that because they're in pain. And it's a human's pain that's been released onto the 3D earth plane. The way that we fight against that is with the power, the electromagnetic power of the soul. Remember, the soul is neutral. The soul doesn't have all these negative feelings. You think you're going through all of this pain and this misery. Your soul is not. Your soul is watching it. If you give power to the soul will become the king of your reality, which means that your soul will guide you towards a path of health and balance and prosperity and happiness. And you may have to learn some lessons along the way, but the soul will always take you to a more highly evolved state. If your life is filled with misery and chaos and pain and illness, it means that you are not following your soul. You are following your human craziness, your human ego. So this shin, this heart mind, this electromagnetic energy, when you do these practices, this takes that self-contained ball of electrical energy surrounding the soul, and it sends that out through the whole body, through the meridians. And so that's why if I walk into a room, ghosts are gonna take off. If I walk into a room, demons are gonna flee. I can walk into the room, and if somebody has demons in them, they will literally get up and walk out of the room. That's happened numerous times. I've seen people like marionettes just picked up and then they just almost float out of the room. And find out later that they said, I don't know, there was something about your energy that just went right through me and I couldn't stay. That's the power of the heart mind, the shin. That is what you are dealing here with the Mao Shan. It is not your basic energy. That's why if you're doing it and you've done other practices, that's why people say, I've never felt this level of purity before, this level of intensity, this level of energy, because it's not the same. It's higher dimensional spirit energy. And this is why doing this heart mind energy will force you to face your craziness. You will be forced immediately to go through it very quickly. And now, if you've done the interdimensional meditation, you know that this is a kinder path. Because if you go straight into that interdimensional meditation and the light beings decide to give you huge amounts of energy, you're going to lose your mind. You're going to feel like you've gone bonkers. And the only thing that's happening is your 3D mind is being destroyed. So this is a proactive path where you are proactively, with the energy of your soul, that electromagnetic energy of your soul, you're intensifying that, and you're purging yourself of all of the three-dimensional limitations of ego, which will not translate into 5D when we go there. I hope I'm making myself clear here. So those are the two paths. Jing to Qi to Shen, 3D. 5D is Qi, Shi to Yi. The ability to intend your reality without any blocks. Let's take a look at the three energy systems of the human body. Again, I'm the first person, to my knowledge, who has synthesized these three, and this was a dangerous thing to do. You know, if people come to me and they say, can I do your stuff and do a bunch of other stuff? I say, it's not a good idea to mix energies. And I know other people who have tried to do what I've done and they couldn't do it. And the reason why is because when you take these 3D energy vibrations and you try and mix them with 5D energy vibrations, it creates a sine wave that can be very destructive to your physical body. It can make you sick. It can cause damage. You can short out some circuits. I can't tell you how I was able to do it, but I did. And I created, to the best of my knowledge, the first system that's syncretized these three. And that is, when you go to the 90-day challenge, the reason why I strongly recommend it is because all you have to do is, you don't have to understand any of this, you just press play and you do the practices, and these will seamlessly come together. You will have powerful experiences, but they will be safe and healthy for your 3D body and your 5D awareness as well. So, the first system is the Chi system, prana, life force, breath work. The second is Kundalini. Kundalini is 5D consciousness. And the third is the heart mind, which we've already talked about. So the Chi path, that's pretty self-explanatory. We're talking about the grid of life force energy here on the third dimension, which is also a conscious grid, which connects us to the life of all things here. It's the basis of health, it's the basis of healing, it's the basis of feeling connected to the Earth Mother. So Chi will connect you to the power of the Earth Mother. So any practice that does breath work, any practice that does the average Qigong movement, that will get you directly connected to this grid of life force energy. If that's all you did for the rest of your life, you'd be perfectly fine. You'd definitely be healthy and happy. You'd still be a 3D person, but you'd be healthy and happy, and you'd have access to spirits and things like that on the three-dimensional level. So you could have a very powerful spiritual experience. Kundalini, 5D consciousness. Now there's a reason why even Kundalini yoga teachers, even very well-known East Indian gurus, make the mistake. I could name names. You can probably guess at least one of them. They will say this. It's been said so many times, and it is absolutely false. They will say that Kundalini is the web of life force energy, and it is not. If Kundalini was the web of life force energy, then everything would have Kundalini in it. Trees, plants, rocks, animals. They don't. Only humans have this. Humans have it. It's supposed to be wound up at the base of the human spine, and it releases and goes up the spinal column. This is why the only system in the world that talks about chakras is the East Indian Vedic system. It's because this is a secret that was given to them, and that's why it's spread all over the world. It's not, if you do Kundalini yoga, you can stimulate Kundalini by doing Qigong. Breath work and postures together can stimulate Kundalini. Sometimes breath work can stimulate Kundalini. But Kundalini is responding to the breath work. It's not because of the breath work. You can have Kundalini awaken spontaneously without doing Qigong. So again, people conflate. They can't help it. They're doing the best they can trying to figure it out. But what Kundalini energy is, now that I have had direct physical energetic connection to higher dimensional beings, Kundalini is higher dimensional energy. It's pure consciousness. That's why only humans have it, because humans are the animals on the planet that are becoming higher dimensional light beings. The consciousness level of humans is destined for that. It doesn't mean that other animals don't have lots of consciousness. Dolphins, there are birds that come to my house on a daily basis, and I feed them and interact with them, and they're conscious. They Your dog can understand you, your cat can understand you, birds can understand you. I'm not talking about that level of awareness. I'm talking about higher dimensional awareness. Humans are the ones that are destined to accomplish that. And that's why the chakra system, I won't take the time here. You can go watch videos on my channel, search for them, please, where I talk about what each of the chakras are and how Kundalini, as it rises up the spine, opens up these different planes of existence. Really, they're planes of projection from within you. So Kundalini is 5-dimensional consciousness, and that's why when your Kundalini gets to your crown chakra, people go into a state of samadhi, which means that they go and connect. They find themselves one with everything, one with God. By the way, that's only half of the process. What's supposed to happen is that your Kundalini rises all the way to the top, the crown chakra opens, you become one with everything, and then you must, with a force of will, take that energy, bring it back down through the chakras. When you do that, then you are an awakened person. And when that happens, you will find you won't find people preaching. So if people are going around the world who clearly have an experience in their preaching, they've only gone halfway. So there's still an ego, there's an ego attachment about being awakened. They'll want to tell everybody how awakened they are, even if they have good motives. It means they've done half of the process, they haven't done the other half. The other half is bringing it back down and grounding it. And when you do that, you will find a very humble person who will have no agenda. They will have no need to promote themselves. They won't even need to be seen as a spiritual person. They will just see themselves as a human, because the end goal of humanity is to become this light being of a human. And when you get to that state, you realize all you've done is just reached the base, requirements of being a human being. You won't be wanting to go tell everybody how spiritual you are. So if you see people out there like that, they're very spiritual, they're very powerful, and that's their job, is to teach. It's because they haven't completely brought it all the way back down again. So this is something I teach in the 90-day challenge. It's mixed in. If you've done it, you know that I teach you some very dynamic Kundalini yoga movements and postures, and mantra and all that kind of stuff as well. The other energy system, the third one, is the one we've already talked about, which is the heart mind, and that is multi-dimensional soul energy. And as I've said, almost nobody on the planet accesses that. The Maoshan were the only people who were downloaded that information, and they kept that secret for 2,000 years. To my knowledge, I'm the first person to be revealing this stuff to the world. Next, we've got the 3 energy system practices. So Qi, Prana, life force, breathwork, and Qigong. That is the main way of doing Qi practice. In the Vedic tradition, they call it pranayama, which just means breathwork. And there's all kinds of breath signatures. I do it all the time. Just to give you an example, a really great breathwork practice is to inhale in 8 sniffs, and then to exhale in 8 sniffs. That's the most simple one. If you want to do an energy practice, find a mantra that has 8 syllables to it. Let's see. Om Shri Ganeshaya Nama. So there's one. One to Ganesha. I'll write it here in the chat for you. Om Shri Ganeshaya Nama. Has 8 syllables. So what you could do is very simply just get in any meditative posture. I'm making it as simple as possible. There's all kinds of things you could do, mudras, but you can just, in any comfortable posture, lying down or sitting down, you just simply, in your mind, say each one of those syllables as you sniff. So there's a breath practice. I'm giving it to you. That's a very safe practice. Ganesha is a very user-friendly deity. He will open things up for you. He will create new things. Your intent can be, I want to be taken down this new 5D path. Ganesha, will you open the path for me? If you do that 3 minutes or say 11 minutes a day, I guarantee you everything will start to change. This is the power of pranayama, just of breath work, not even getting into the disciplines of qigong. The lightning qigong energy. Oh wait, sorry. So the chi, the prana, the life force will do that. Kundalini is awakened physically by doing yoga. So let's talk about yoga for a second. People think yoga is what is really called hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is the stretching. So you see people doing all that stretching. That has only one function. It has been completely taken out of context, and it has been, even in my experience, many East Indians don't even know the point of hatha yoga. Hatha yoga has one purpose. It is to make the meridians able to handle the kundalini that will come as a result of mantra meditation. It's the whole point. So it's sort of like, getting yourself ready for, making love with somebody. It's the appetizer. It's not the main course. And the way this came about was that before people in the United States and Europe started doing yoga, what happened is that Westerners would go to India way back before all of this stuff was commercialized. So we're talking 100 years ago. So people would go to India to learn from the yogis. So this is why, the autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda. Yogananda didn't teach hatha yoga. I mean, not the way. What he taught a meditative practice. He was a yogi. So yoga is the same as the English word yoke. It's the same word. In fact, yoga, the A on the end isn't even part of the word. Yoke. Yoke in English means to yoke things together. If you have, the last, I think, use of the word yoke was when you had two farm animals, like two oxen, and you would take this wooden thing that you put on their heads, and you'd have two of them, and you'd put the wooden thing on both of their heads so they'd be standing right next to each other. So you'd have the power of two of them pulling your farm equipment, whatever. You'd yoke the oxen together. So yog means to be unified. So a yogi is somebody who has achieved unity with what? His spirit. Unity with God, unity with the infinite. So when you go to learn yoga, you're learning union. A yogi is a master. So what would happen is people from the West would show up in India, and they would go to wherever, and they'd say, I want to learn from the local yogi. And they would say, oh, you want to learn with Sri so-and-so. He's at the top of the hill there at the top. That's where and they'd go to him and they'd say, Master so-and-so, Guru so-and-so, I want to learn yoga. And so the master would look at them. They'd see this Western person. If they had abilities, they'd be able to see energetically that they got a lot of energetic blocks. And so they would teach them hatha yoga. They'd learn pranayama, they would learn how to stretch, and that would be so that they would be able to open up their meridians, because if that guru didn't teach them hatha yoga, they wouldn't, and he just started throwing them straight into the mantras, they'd blow a circuit. And now the traditional teacher doesn't address your intellect. I address your intellect because the majority of you are Westerners. So you need your intellect addressed in order to learn. I'm the same way. People feel better when they think they know what's going on. But the traditional method is you just push people in the deep end. You don't tell them anything, because the way to learn something is through experience. That's why, a real teacher doesn't tell you everything you want to hear. They might just tell you 2 or 3 words, or they might just give you one practice. And if you don't follow their instructions, they'll stop teaching you. So when you went to the yogi and you said, Shri Guru so-and-so, I want to learn yoga, they look at these Westerners whose bodies, 100 years ago were just a shambles, and they would teach them Hatha Yoga. And so people learned how to stretch, and they learned how to do the sun salutations, and they learned how to do all that stuff. And they practiced it for a year, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years. And of course, again, the guru doesn't tell you, okay, this is a 5-year program, which is like people do now. They say, I want to know exactly what I'm going to learn. And I'm like, I don't know what you're going to learn. So traditionally, when you go to a yogi, he's just going to tell you what you need, and your job isn't to question. Your job is just go learn it. When he sees in your aura, your behavior, that you've evolved, he goes, okay, now you're ready for the next lesson. And if you say, okay, how many lessons are there? He says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't teach you. Thank you for showing up. The moment you start questioning the path and intellectualizing, he knows he can't teach you, he's going to stop. So people came back to the US, and they started creating these yoga classes, thinking that that's what yoga is, not realizing that the stretching was just getting the body prepared for the meditation. That's why Yogananda is a yogi. That's why the Kriya Yoga, those guys didn't teach Hatha Yoga, they taught mantra and meditation. It was still yoga, but it's an advanced thing. It's not for the average, blunt-headed Westerner who just needs to open up their meridians. So Kundalini can be done with yoga, but then it should, if any of you do yoga, which of course we do here, you'll notice when you do the 90-day challenge, I take you through some yoga, and then what's the next thing I do? I give you a mantra. You go straight from that into your meditation, because that was the point. Yoga was to get the body prepared for the meditation, for the Kundalini that would be raised through the meditation. So Kundalini is raised by yoga, mantra, and interdimensional meditation is also probably the most powerfully Kundalini stimulating practice I've ever experienced. There's a reason why the first light being that physically interacted with me, there's a reason why he touched me on the crown chakra, and I was never the same. I haven't been the same after that. The Kundalini that started to be released in me and raised through me was, that's why when you saw, back in June of 2022, you saw me say for a few weeks, listen, I can't make any videos. I just have to take care of myself, because the level of Kundalini that was going through me, I was barely able to function. So yoga, Vedic mantra, interdimensional meditation, this is going to open up your Kundalini. The heart mind. Now, I don't know any other practice in the world that opens up the heart mind other than the Mao Shan. I've seen one other Taoist martial artist who mentioned it, because Taoists know about the Shin, they know about the heart mind, but knowing about it and being able to magnify it, manipulate it, and all that, that's a whole other thing. Knowing about it, because we all have it, everybody has it, it has a function in the body. That's not the same as being able to tap into it and expand it. But this was a Xing Yi guy who said you have to be careful with this specific Xing Yi posture, because it might stimulate the Shin, and when that happens, then he starts giving you all the scary details. Ooh, which really what he's saying is you'll start to tap into the higher dimensional aspect of things, and for the average person, that will mean you're going to feel like you're going crazy, because you won't want to be part of this three-dimensional narrative anymore. And so since we're going through this transformation, you're not supposed to be part of this narrative anymore. You're ready to get rid of it. So now all of the forces are giving people this experience to learn how to let go of the 3D and go to the 5D. So the heart-mind energy is done through Maoshan energy work. There are meditations that I give, the Maoshan meditations, the 3-1 meditation. That's going to work with the heart-mind energy big time. And then there's the mantra that I give. The poem, the Maoshan poem, the Maoshan mantra. I give that, which of course you can find here at the 90-day challenge as well. These are the things that are going to open up the heart-mind. And this is an energy system practice that is done all together. It's synthesized in the lightning qigong. We syncretize and synthesize all 3 energy systems into one practice. The lightning qigong itself uses both life force and shin, the kundalini yoga that I teach you through the lightning qigong phases. Will open the nadis, the mantras and the mudras. And then the heart mind, as I said, is going to be activated with the lightning qigong, the Maoshan mudras, and the spirit fighting forms. So I still give the entry level to the spirit fighting. It is actual spirit fighting, but it's even though it's still more powerful than anything you're going to find anywhere else, it's the entry level. And that you can find here at 923.thunderwizard.com. It's the 5-element Maoshan moving forms, which it looks like a Tai Chi martial art, but it's hiding. Actually, now having reverse engineered it, it actually is opening up the heart mind. And by the way, there's meridians for the heart mind for all 5 elements. And if you know where they are on the body and how to put them together, you can open the heart mind, the wood element. You can open up the heart mind, the metal, the fire, water, and earth. So that's what these practices do. And I only know this because I reverse engineered it. And I saw that there was no way that this was just something that came up, willy-nilly. I learned from somebody who learned directly from the Grandmaster who has now passed away. So the thing about Maoshan is that it's a living tradition. This is why I have channeled certain practices and energies that come directly, and I'm open and I say this is a Maoshan practice. And I know it's a Maoshan practice because the beings that give it to me are part of that lineage. That doesn't mean that you're going to find that same thing if you find another Maoshan practitioner. Very hard to find any today anyway. But the Sifu that taught these 5-element practices, I don't even think he realized what he was doing. I know that he channeled this, and his students, many of them just didn't even. In fact, I learned from another guy who learned directly from him, and he said, I don't even do the 5-element stuff because that came later. But he doesn't understand. I mean, he might be listening. If he doesn't understand, now that I've reverse engineered them, there is no way that the Sifu just made that up. Because I know he didn't have the ability, he didn't have the knowledge to know where all of those meridians were and how to stimulate them. And when you see what each one of those practices is doing and what the hands are doing, and if you know what the meridians are and how they go to the heart mind in the elemental form, you know that there's no way a human being made that up. So this is the entry level to the spirit fighting. It's still spirit fighting, but it's entry level. So if you want to understand that and practice that, while I'm still giving this away almost for free, go here to 923.thunderwizard.com. All right, so those are the 3 systems. So I've gone through all of it as best I could. And of course, the stuff continues to get deep. And again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, and comment. Go to the playlist section. Click on the following playlist, the Maoshan Qigong, the Interdimensional Meditation, 12 Steps to 5D. Do at least one thing from those 3 playlists every day. And subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You don't have to wait. People say, I want to wait to be ready. You don't have to wait. Just go do it. I wouldn't throw it out there if it wasn't something you're ready. If you want to, just go ahead and get this too, the 923. if you want to learn the full Maoshan tradition that I know of, what you want to do is you want to get the 5-element Maoshan at 923 and be subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Because that is where all of the Maoshan practices that I have, save for the most advanced spirit fighting, that's the only thing that I don't put in there. But it's a full tradition, and I guarantee you won't find it anywhere. Even if you go to the mountains in China, you won't find this. You won't find anything even close to this. And I encourage anybody to go and try and prove me wrong. All right, so that's it. Now, if you want to work with me directly, which I recommend everybody have a teacher, have a mentor, you go and subscribe to the thunderwizard.com, but look for the apprenticeship version, which will give you the ability to talk with me once, between 1 and 4 times per month, depending on what apprenticeship level you choose. And if you want to have just one session with me, because you don't know which way to go, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com, scroll to the bottom, purchase a session with me, and I'll be able to either help you find which way to go or give you some, I'll be able to help you figure out what to do next. And if you have a question for me, I guarantee you that there's other people that have that same question. And the way that you can give back to everybody else on this channel, as well as get your question answered, is to go here to askmike.thunderwizard.com. I will make a video of your question, and I will upload it to the channel if you're willing to have me answer your question in front of the world. So go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. It's a good, again, one of the greatest things you can do is to give to others. And the way you do that in this case is you share with the world your question. Don't be like the immature, entitled people who contact me directly and then give some big question. They just want me to focus on them only. And I always say the same thing. I go, if you're not going to purchase a session from me, then I need you to go onto the channel and put your question in the YouTube comments section so that other people can benefit from it. A lot of people are just so wrapped up in themselves, they don't realize we're in this thing together. So the way that you can understand that, still get your question asked, and support the channel, is to go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. And if you haven't read my books, you're not going to know what kind of questions to ask. So you can get my books at michaelwilliamdenny.com, or if you go to that website and you're in another country outside of the United States, there will be a link which will take you to your Amazon Kindle or Audible stream, and you'll be able to look at all my books. The 3 that I recommend you get are Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, which will explain a lot of this 5-dimensional stuff, The Interdimensional Revolution, and perhaps the most important and the easiest one to read, which is the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. If you live what's in that booklet, I guarantee you, you will go to 5D. That's it. All right, so I've given you plenty of time. Nobody's asked any questions. Is there anybody even watching? Yeah, there's a few people watching. All right, so that's fine. That makes things simple for me. So that's enough out of me. I wish you guys all the best. And, as always, if the flash don't come and or the Starship Enterprise doesn't beam me up, I will see you guys all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves. Stay tuned. I'm going to put up a picture which will show you how to do an interdimensional meditation if you've never done it before. I'll give you some instructions. Thank you, and I will see you guys all very soon. I love you all, and I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate every single one of you who is doing the work, every single one of you who are working directly with me. You're an inspiration to me. It blows my mind to see how these tools are, in all reality, showing up in people's lives and making them, just what people are accomplishing by doing this work is extremely inspiring to me and gives me a lot of joy to see that. It makes me think that all the work I'm doing is worth it, and I appreciate that. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you all next time. Please take very good care of yourselves.